Hello YouTube, today we're going to be doing some more Gary's Mod tanks. Today we're going to be looking at my Vanguard tank, the M45. This tank has not gone through nearly as much as an evolution as the SH21, for instance, from my earlier videos, but it has gone through a few changes. This tank is significant in that it was spec'd to be a 25 to 30 ton tank, but have the heaviest armor possible with a decent armament and very high mobility. And I actually pulled that off fairly well. First version, this is actually the M45A1, so it's technically not the first version. It has about 300 millimeters of effective frontal armor and a 100 millimeter gun. This tank's very special, not so much because of the armament or the armor, but because of the mobility. This tank has a very complicated mobility system. Instead of using my normal CVT transmissions, I found it takes far less room to fit two transaxle medium 8-speed transmissions in the hull, which then both connect to these two inline 3 petrol engines, and they use a really complex driving chip that NTBB Kid made for me, otherwise known as Sir Daubers. So this thing basically, based on the RPM and the speed, it selects the perfect gear to be in at all times, and it drives very fast for the amount of horsepower it has. Anyway, the real issue that I found with this tank was the turret. The original kind of soup bowl turret here is just far too weak. Also, the armament does not need to be this heavy. It does not need a 100 millimeter gun. So it was upgraded to the M45 A275, which changes the turret armor a little bit, and it shoves this 75 millimeter auto loading cannon in, and a fairly powerful 20 millimeter auto cannon. And then from there, I decided I should redesign the turret to follow the spec of most of my newer tanks, and we got the modular M45 A3 that we see today. So far there's actually 3 variants of this tank. I made it to be kind of modular. So there's the 75 millimeter cannon version. There is the 50 millimeter autocannon version. This is the primary version, the 50 millimeter autocannon version. And there is the 105 millimeter howitzer version. Basically, the idea behind this tank is to drive into combat at high speed. We'll demonstrate the mobility in just a moment. Let me get out my armor calculator tool really quick. It's to drive into combat at high speed, deflect any incoming shells that may hit it, because its frontal armor is very strong, then get behind the target and pump shots into the rear where it's very weak, or the sides. Like this 50 millimeter autocannon has a high rate of fire and 80 millimeters of penetration with APHE ammo, and it has taken out 40 to 50 ton main battle tanks in just 1 to 2 shots to the back. And then we also have the 75 millimeter cannon, which fires, I believe, normal AP ammunition with 156 millimeters of penetration. That's useful if you're going to be dueling at longer range. And then we've also got the 105 millimeter howitzer version, which also fires APHE with 115 millimeters of penetration, low velocity, and a very high explosive output. The weight between these tanks is not super significant. The original tank weighed about 20 tons, the A1 version, and these tanks weigh close to 30 tons, so they're a bit heavier. But that's because of much increased turret armor and following spec more closely. It does not affect mobility too much. Okay, so let's take a look at the armor really quick, then I'll show you what's so special about the mobility with this tank. Okay, so lower plate is 308 millimeters effective, that's kind of what you want to aim for, and it's got 200 health, so this thing can take hits in a slugging match. Upper plate is 80 millimeters, but it's sloped back at 75 degrees, giving it 309 millimeters of effective armor. And then you've got the turret, which it's 282 millimeters effective down here. The turret's pretty weak. Ideally, I would not be getting shot in the turret. It has to use these thicker plates because these props are just very small. So we've got the 45 degree angle plate, 200 millimeters, 282 millimeters effective. Then we got a 300 effective smaller plate up here, and the top of the turret is angled really far back at 40 millimeters. And then we've got our 50 millimeter autocannon. Real setback at this tank is only has 3 degrees of gun depression, but it's very small, so it's not a huge deal. And then the inside's cleaned out quite a bit in this version. We re-added the turret ring, a legit turret with a hole for the gun to stick through. It's got, I believe it's got 80 millimeters of side armor, which is actually pretty damn good for this weight class. And we carry enough rounds of ammunition. It's powered by 2 inline 3 13.5 liter petrol engines, 329 horsepower each. And it's got this dual transmission system. These things sticking up here are actually fins. It has to use these to drive straight. It's really kind of a complicated system here. Okay, so let me show you this thing's driving, because that's really what's special about this tank. So I'm going to take out my debugger tool just so we can kind of keep track of how fast we're going and what the gears are doing and stuff like that. This tank uses logarithms to... I'm sorry about that. This tank uses logarithms to calculate which gear it's supposed to be in. I just wanted to see what the fuck that button did. Okay, to calculate which gear it's supposed to be in based on the top speed that you want to achieve and the RPM of the engine. So I have to wait a second because due to the lower torque and lower RPMs of this tank, it has to run at 50% throttle all the time, even when you're stopped, so you have to wait for that to rev up a little bit. Okay, so we're off. You can see speed in the upper left. I don't know what kind of resolution you have exactly, but we are driving 30 miles an hour already. And, I mean, it's not a gloriously fast tank, but 30 miles an hour is pretty damn fast, because Gary's mod is scaled back. Like my SH21D actually can drive about as fast, maybe even faster than this tank. However, that tank has issues with the center of mass and stuff, and the actual gearing and turning is not very good, so I couldn't drive like this. Like, this is just very precise. Like the SH21, you know, my MBT7 would spin out if I just tried. Like, this is just great handling. I can drive exactly where I want to go with braking and turning, all based on the speed of the tank. So yeah, if you look, the gear actually counts up similar to a CVT, and then it switches rapidly between gears based on engine RPM and the speed. I honestly don't quite understand how it works. But Sir Dauber certainly does. This tank is just a joy to drive. It's really small. Any gun that hits the front of this thing has a very low chance of it, unless it's like a massive HE shell or something. It has a low chance of getting a one-shot penetration, which means we can easily pull behind the tank. stop the tank and open fire into the rear of an enemy tank. I'll demonstrate that for you really quick here. So let's see here. Let's go ahead and spawn our... Let's spawn the M14A4, which is my MBT Mark 7 tank. Okay, so this tank's just hanging out here. You know, he's like, hey, fuck you, and he's just gonna shoot me, right? Okay. So he's got a 100mm gun, weighs 40 tons. We weigh about 28 tons. That gun is not gonna penetrate the front of this tank in a single shot. So we come in. You know, we can lay down like some support fire with a geostabilized gun, but we're not going to penetrate the front of his tank. So, just rapidly turn around, fire a few shots right into the back of his tank, and then just drive off. This is a really lame demonstration, I know, but that's basically what the idea is for this tank. This gun is, like, you fire this gun into the back of a tank and they're fucked. Like, this is a really powerful gun. It's only got 80mm of penetration, but it's got HE explosion and a rapid rate of fire. They're just gonna die if they get shot by this thing. And then it can just displace super fast. Like, look at this thing. I'm doing like this crazy ass turn here. It can't pivot in place right now. Later versions should have that ability, but it doesn't really matter right now. If I tried to do this in the MBT 7, we would have like just completely lost control, maybe even flipped over. Okay, just if anyone wants to have an idea of how this chip actually works in here, let's just take a look for anyone who's so inclined. So we'll go inside here. This is the turret chip. This is the auto trans chip. So this is the whole thing. See, it uses max RPM input here, 7 forward gears, and max speed is actually 35 miles an hour. We can get over that speed, but that's the target speed, which is pretty fast for a tank. And it literally just figures out the gear ratio based on logarithmic equations. And that's how it works. And then turning and stuff like that just uses this arithmetic here. It just figures out the speed and how fast we're supposed to be going and so forth to figure out what the clutch setting should be on a turn, and then it just uses normal braking. So it doesn't use the dual differential. It just turns using brakes and stuff. Anyway, yeah, this is a pretty fun tank. It's sexy. It's got good armor. It's got good mobility. I just really like this tank. That's pretty much all that really needs to be said about it, I guess. Let's just take a quick look at the other variants of the M45A3. Okay, so it's under my Vanguard tank folder, which it's the only Vanguard tank that I have. There's tons and tons and tons of these. Okay, so here's the 105 howitzer version of the tank. They all use the identical, or virtually identical, hull and turret configuration. The howitzer has this extra little piece added on top because the breech of the thing opens upward and it goes through the top of the turret. Here, the engine spool up. Both the howitzer version and the 75mm version have a 30 caliber coaxial gun, just because the weapon is not as versatile as the 50mm autocannon. Kind of hear it hitting the gun. See, the 105 howitzer is actually pretty fucking strong. Like, it's not super low velocity howitzer, and it does not affect my mobility really at all. It weighs almost the same as the 50mm autocannon actually. wouldn't really want to use this tank specifically in much of in anything more than a support role, because it's not really ideal. And then, of course, we've got the 75mm version. This version actually doesn't have an autoloader, which the original A2 variant of the M45 actually had a 75mm autoloader. But I don't really care. It's fine, because the turret is actually smaller laterally than that version, so it's important to try to keep the room up. Anyway, this tank is supposed to have a coax gun, but I guess I haven't added it yet, because this one's still kind of WIP. But the gun works. This tank also has 5 degrees of gun depression, which is greater than all the other tanks, because the gun is significantly smaller. And the tank is definitely still made out of pure sex. Got some hill climbing issues, so it still goes pretty fast uphill. So it does use a petrol engine, so it doesn't have the greatest torque in the world. Yeah! Okay, I think that's all you need to know about the M45 Vanguard tank. It is fucking awesome. I really enjoy it.